Mother and father ignored me for 3 months, focused only on golden siblings, so I packed my bags and vanished forever. Be me. 26 years old female named Olivia, youngest in family of 5, living in Chicago suburbs my whole life. Might as well have been a ghost in my own house. Never felt like I belonged there. Have 2 older brothers. David is the oldest. Lucas is the middle child. Parents made it obvious who their favorites were. Definitely wasn't me. David was their pride and joy, always bragging about him at family gatherings. David got this amazing consulting job. Everyone needs to know, apparently. Lucas was the golden child in his own way. The sporty one, life of every party. Guy everyone wanted to hang out with, had trophies all over his room. Parents loved showing them off to visitors. Meanwhile, there's me, just Olivia, the quiet kid in the corner. Oh, you're here too, child. They weren't cruel, just didn't care enough to notice me. Half the time forgot I existed. Remember when I first realized how different things were? Was around 8 years old. Core memory that never fades. School let out early because of major snowstorm. Everyone's parents rushing to pick up their kids. Waited there alone, clutching my purple backpack, staring out the window. Watching other kids leave one by one. Last kid there. Janitor came over eventually. Are your parents coming? Said they must be stuck in traffic. Waited another hour. Getting dark outside? Finally gave up. Walked home in the snow. No winter boots, just regular shoes. Completely soaked by the time I got there. Shoes making squishing sounds with every step. Opened the front door. Mom sitting on couch. Reading some fashion magazine. Didn't even look up. Oh, you're back. Dinner's in the microwave. That's it. No, why are you soaked? No, sorry we forgot you. Nothing. It wasn't just one bad day, though. This kind of stuff happened all the time. Parents forgot to pick me up from school so often. My teacher started offering to drive me home. She'd always ask if I wanted her to call them. Always said no. What was even the point? Birthdays were another level of awful. Mom would throw these parties, but they weren't really for me. She'd invite her friends and their kids. Not my friends. Still remember one year clearly. Standing in the hallway. Overheard her on the phone with her friend. Olivia doesn't really have friends anyway. Hit me so hard I couldn't breathe. Went back to my room. Stayed there until the party was over. Could hear everyone laughing downstairs. Didn't even want to know what they were laughing about. David and Lucas made everything worse. David loved teasing me about literally everything. If I brought home a good grade, he'd laugh and say, "What do you want, a medal?" Always in that mocking voice of his. Like everything I did was a joke. Lucas was the cool one. Barely acknowledged my existence. Unless it was to roll his eyes or tell me to stop being so annoying when I wasn't even doing anything. The worst part? Everyone outside our family thought we were perfect. My aunts would always gush about how lucky I was. Such a supportive, wealthy family. You must be so grateful. Lucky? Are you kidding me? Wanted to scream every time I heard that. By the time I got to middle school, thought maybe if I wanted attention, I'd have to do something big. Joined every club I could find. Started working harder on grades. Signed up for all possible after-school activities. Chess club, debate team, school newspaper. Everything I could get my hands on. Thought if I excelled at something, they'd finally notice me. It worked. Kind of. They'd say stuff like "good job," but always in passing, like checking off a box on their to-do list. Meanwhile, David kept going on about his college plans. Lucas kept bringing home more trophies. Compared to them, I was still just background noise. Made honor roll one year. School sent home this fancy certificate. Was so proud of it. Taped it right on the fridge. Thought maybe they'd finally say something. Next day it was gone. Mom had replaced it with Lucas's soccer schedule. Just like that, tried confronting them about it once. Asked Dad why they never came to my school events. "We're busy, Olivia, you know that." His voice so dismissive. "Busy doing what?" Shot back at him. "You went to David's debate last week." He just shrugged. David's competitions are a big deal. Besides, we can't be everywhere at once. Didn't even bother responding. What was the point? By time high school started, finally gave up trying to compete for their attention. Focused on building something for myself instead. Threw everything into academics. Worked my ass off. But this time it was just for me. Not to impress them. It actually paid off. Became valedictorian of my class. Thought maybe, just maybe, this would finally make them proud. Sent out graduation ceremony invitations. Made sure they had all the details. Even reminded them the week before. Triple checked everything. Day of my speech arrives. Standing at the podium, scanning the crowd, looking for their faces. Their seats were empty. Just empty. Found out later why they weren't there. They'd gone to one of Lucas's basketball games instead. Wasn't even a championship. Just a regular season game. Nothing special. Remember sitting in my car after graduation, still wearing my cap and gown, holding my diploma, feeling completely numb inside. It didn't matter what I did. They were never going to see me. really see me. That moment stuck with me. First time I truly realized I was completely on my own. Couldn't rely on them for anything. Not their support, not their approval, nothing. Think that was when I started planning my escape. College was my ticket out. Wasn't going to waste it. When college application time came, only knew one thing for sure. Had to get as far away from home as possible. Applied to schools on the opposite coast. As far as I could get. There wasn't even a big emotional goodbye. When I left for college, parents barely acknowledged it. David had gone to some prestigious university years earlier. Lucas was being scouted for college sports. Me going to school? Just another day on the calendar. Got into a good university. Full scholarship. Only way it was happening. Knew they wouldn't help financially. They didn't. David got a brand new BMW when he graduated. Parents made sure Lucas's dorm was fully paid for. Everything he needed. Me? Got a congrats text. That was it. Nothing else. College was overwhelming at first. Juggling classes. Working part-time at campus bookstore. Trying to figure out how to live on my own. But honestly, it felt freeing. No one there to dismiss me. Or make me feel like an afterthought. First time I realized, could build a life without them. Wasn't all smooth sailing though. Those first few months were rough. Would get random texts from mom. Usually passive-aggressive stuff. Haven't heard from you in a while. Too busy for your family? Once she even left a voicemail, saying she missed me, but her tone made it clear. She wasn't actually sad. Think she just liked making me feel guilty. Didn't bother replying most of the time. One time she asked if I was coming home for holidays. Told her couldn't afford the trip, since was paying for everything myself. Her response? Well, if you managed your money better, you wouldn't have that problem. Nearly laughed out loud. Was already scraping by. 2 part-time jobs, student loans, barely making ends meet. As semesters went on, started to find my footing. Got a job at local cafe near campus. Owner was actually nice. Treated me like a human being. More than I could say for my own parents. Was nice having someone ask, "How are you doing?" And actually mean it, even while figuring myself out. The cracks in my family kept getting bigger. Would check my brother's social media sometimes, like looking into completely different world. David thriving in his fancy job, constant posts about expensive dinners, fancy vacations, parents probably paying for all of it. Lucas killing it in his sports career, endless posts from his games, parents always front and center, in every single photo. There for every moment. No mentions of me, not a single one. No proud of Olivia for doing her thing at college. No look at my daughter working so hard. It was like I didn't exist at all. One day, a coworker at cafe asked about my family. Didn't know what to say? Oh, they're busy with my brothers. Brushed it off like it was nothing. But inside, felt this familiar pain. That burning anger. Why was it so easy for them? So easy to just ignore me? Things came to a head during holidays. Parents kept pushing me to come home for Christmas. Finally gave in. Thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Big mistake. Second, I walked in the door. Clear I was just a visitor, not family. Mom made huge deal about David's new job. Wouldn't shut up about Lucas's latest game highlights. No one even asked how I was doing. Not a single question. During dinner, David smirked across the table. Wait, what are you even studying again? Glared at him. Business administration. Like I've told you 100 times. Oh, right, business. Dragged out the word like it was joke. Then turned to Lucas. So what's the deal with your next game? Sat there, barely resisting urge to throw plate across room. Dad decided to pipe up. All smug and self-important. David and Lucas are really making the family proud. Bit my tongue so hard, could taste blood. Inside, I was boiling. After dinner, Mom cornered me in kitchen. You've been really quiet, Olivia. Is there something wrong? Stared at her. Yeah, I'm great. Voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, you sure don't seem great. She snapped back. Maybe if you actually visited once in a while, you wouldn't feel so left out. That was it. Finally exploded. Oh, I feel left out because you've never given a crap about including me. Don't act like this is on me. Her face twisted. That's not true, Olivia. And you know it. Stop being so dramatic. Dramatic? Shot back at her. You've ignored me my whole life. Don't stand there and act like it's my fault. I don't want to be around you. Just shook my head. Walked away. What was even the point anymore? Breaking point came later that night. Was in kitchen getting water. Heard voices outside. Dad talking to neighbor over fence. Usually ignored their boring small talk. But then heard something that stopped me cold. Dad's voice crystal clear. Yeah, we've got 2 kids. David and Lucas keep us plenty busy. 2 kids, not 3. At first thought I misheard. Stepped closer to door. Heart pounding in chest. Mom laughed and added, Olivia's off doing her own thing. I guess she's not around much anymore. That's when it hit me. They weren't just ignoring me, they'd literally erased me. Felt wave of anger rush through me. Before I could think, yanked the door open. Stepped outside. Dad and neighbor looked up. Startled expressions on their faces. 2 kids, huh? Voice shaking with rage. Guess I don't count anymore. Dad blinked, clearly caught off guard. Olivia, it's not what you think. Don't! Cut him off mid-sentence. I heard you. You don't even acknowledge me as your kid. What kind of parent does that? Neighbor mumbled something about needing to head home. Scurried away like coward. Dad turned to me, his face hardening. Olivia, you're being dramatic. You're always off doing your own thing. So what do you expect us to say? What do I expect? Was shaking from anger now. I expect you to remember I exist. I expect you to care, even just a little about my life. But I guess that's asking too much, huh? Mom sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Olivia, you're overreacting. You're so sensitive about these things. Laughed bitterly. Sensitive? You've ignored me my whole life. And now you're pretending I don't exist. And I'm the sensitive one? Olivia, stop this, Dad said sternly. You're being ridiculous. Supported me how exactly? You didn't even pay for my college. You show up for every one of Lucas's games. Brag about David's job to everyone? But what have you done for me? Name one thing. They just stood there, silent, looking at me like I was the problem. But I was done, completely, utterly done, standing there in backyard. You know what? Stepped back toward the door. Forget it. You don't have to pretend anymore. You've made it pretty clear where I stand. I'm leaving. Don't bother calling me. Because I'm not coming back. Mom rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Olivia. Stop making a big deal out of everything. Didn't even reply. Went inside. Grabbed my things. Walked out. Drove back to my apartment that night. Complete silence the whole way. 3-hour drive. Nothing but my thoughts. Replaying the whole thing in my head. Part of me felt guilty. Wondering if I'd overreacted. Then reminded myself of everything. All the years of neglect. Empty seats at my graduation. Complete lack of care or interest. This wasn't me overreacting. This was me finally standing up for myself. Got back to my apartment. Sat on my bed for a long time, staring at my phone. Couple of missed calls from Mom. No voicemails. No texts. Not even attempt to apologize. That was the moment. Knew it wasn't just about leaving physically. Had to cut them out completely. Unfriended them on every social media. Facebook, Instagram, all of it. Updated my emergency contacts. If they didn't want me in their lives, I'd make sure they weren't in mine. But even that didn't feel like enough. After everything they'd done, people needed to know the truth. So did something never thought I'd do. Went on an online forum, wrote everything out, every detail, years of being ignored. All the missed events, that final confrontation. Laid it all out, raw and unfiltered. Didn't use real names, but included enough details so people would understand just how bad it really was. Didn't think much would happen. Was just venting, getting everything off my chest. But by next morning, post had exploded. Hundreds of comments, thousands of likes, messages flooding in. From strangers sharing similar stories. People telling me they'd been through same thing. Others sharing how they were overlooked or ignored by their families. Finally didn't feel like I was the problem. It was validating. In way can't even describe. Wasn't invisible anymore? Not to these strangers at least. Attention gave me weird confidence. Decided wasn't going to sit in silence. Let them sweep this under rug, like they did with everything else. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, would make sure everyone knew who they really were. Started digging up receipts, went through old emails, found all the texts, even dug up old pictures, found photo from high school graduation. Could clearly see empty seats, where they were supposed to be. Found text from Mom after college acceptance. Good for you, let us know if you need anything. Laughable, really. They never lifted a finger to help. Made another post. Added all the evidence, screenshots, photos, more details about that final night. Post absolutely exploded. Even bigger than first one. People were furious on my behalf, calling my parents textbook narcissists, praising me for cutting ties. Support was overwhelming. Strangers telling me I'd done right thing, that I was brave for walking away. Some said my post inspired them to finally stand up to their own toxic families. Then suddenly, parents found out. They didn't stay silent. Went straight into attack mode. Mom was first to pounce. Left voicemail. Voice fake sweet, but absolutely seething underneath. Olivia, we need to talk. This post you wrote is causing serious issues. I just can't believe you'd air family problems like that. Call me back. Deleted it immediately. Out of nowhere, David decided to chime in. Sent email that made my blood boil. You're humiliating the family. Wrote like he was lecturing from podium. This is immature. You're blowing everything out of proportion. Take the post down. Apologize to mom and dad. Apologize for what? Didn't even bother replying. Just when thought it couldn't get worse, Lucas shot off text. What are you doing? This is making everything harder for everyone. Just stop already. Harder for everyone? Are you kidding me? After years of being ignored and dismissed, they had audacity to tell me to let it go. Absolutely not. If they wanted silence, they were barking up wrong tree. Wasn't just within family anymore. Word spread to their friends. People started asking uncomfortable questions, mutual acquaintance told me. Mom tried to downplay post, saying it was just misunderstanding. That I was going through a phase, but not everyone bought it. Some of their friends started distancing themselves. Parents' perfect family image starting to crack. They were scrambling to fix it. Mom, being mom, went straight to Facebook. Posted long dramatic message. Heartbroken that her youngest had turned against family. Classic victim mode. Wrote how they always did their best for Olivia. Devastating that she would do this to us. Comments were total mixed bag. Some people blindly rallied behind her. You're such a good mom. She'll come around. But others weren't buying her act. Someone straight up called her out. Why doesn't Olivia visit anymore? There must be a reason. Couldn't stop laughing when saw it. Little spark of satisfaction. Watching people finally hold them accountable was just cherry on top. Made me laugh even harder. Not about Ethan's awards anymore, or Lucas's games. All attention was on me. For once. But parents weren't done. Few days later, got message from Aunt Catherine, one of few relatives I'd been close to. Said she'd heard about post. Wanted to talk. Figured she'd be on my side. But nope. Answered the phone. She started in right away. Olivia, I don't understand why you're doing this. Your parents aren't perfect, but they love you. Cut her off immediately. If they loved me, they wouldn't have treated me like I didn't exist. For years, and definitely wouldn't have told neighbor. They only have 2 kids. She acted like I was being difficult. Families fight, Olivia, but you don't air your dirty laundry in public? This isn't how you solve things. Told her straight up. It's not about solving things. It's about finally telling the truth. If they didn't want this out there, maybe they should have acted like parents. Instead of pretending I didn't matter. She didn't have much to say after that, but messages kept coming. Cousins, aunts, even family friend hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone had an opinion. Most of them same thing. You're being too harsh. But thing is, I wasn't being harsh. Was being honest. At some point realized. Didn't have to keep defending myself. To these people, they weren't there. When parents skipped graduation. Didn't see me sitting in snow. Waiting for ride that never came. Didn't live through years of being ignored. While brothers showered with love and attention. So stopped responding. Instead of defending myself, threw myself into building my life. Without them, started spending more time with friends who were nothing but supportive. Mara, my best friend, even joked about it. You should just adopt us as your family. We're way better anyway. She wasn't wrong. Around this time, started making bigger moves. Legally changed my last name. Updated all my records. Changed emergency contacts. Didn't want them tied to me. In any way, not even on paper. It was freeing. In way can't even explain. At that point, they finally went silent. Thought dust had settled. Turns out that was just calm before storm. Parents didn't just sit back, let things slide. Went straight into full-blown damage control. Not to fix anything with me. This wasn't about repairing relationships. Was about saving face, and boy were they scrambling. They weren't just trying to save reputation. Were actively trying to destroy mine. Mutual acquaintance sent me screenshots of mom's post in one of her Facebook groups. Claimed I was unstable, making up lies. Because I was jealous of David and Lucas. Said she and dad had done everything for me. But I was ungrateful, determined to hurt family. The kicker? She ended it with, it's heartbreaking to see your own child turn against you for no reason, complete with sad emoji, and Bible quote about forgiveness. Comments made my blood boil. Her church friends chimed in. You're such a good mother. Olivia will come around eventually. One even added, some kids don't realize how lucky they are. Until it's too late? Lucky? Seriously? But worst part was seeing relatives join in. Cousin hadn't heard from in years commented. I always thought Olivia was a little dramatic. Another relative messaged me directly. You're being unfair to your parents? They've always been so kind to us. Are you sure this isn't just a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding. That word sat with me for days. How do you misunderstand lifetime of being ignored? How do you misinterpret being erased from own family? Left them on read? Didn't trust myself to respond. Without saying something would regret. People in my hometown started connecting dots. Even though never mentioned names in post, suddenly hearing from everyone, old neighbors, mutual acquaintances, relatives hadn't spoken to in years. Message came from former neighbor. I always thought your parents were a little too focused on your brothers, but never realized it was this bad. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Part of me wanted to say, where was this energy when I was kid? But just left it on red instead. Then came more relatives. Some sent apologies, felt more like clearing their conscience than actually owning up to anything. Others weren't so kind. One messaged about how you're tearing the family apart. Need to make things right. That one stung more than expected, even though deleted it without replying, as much as didn't want to care. It hurt to lose some extended family. Cousin I'd been close to growing up, sent long text. I just don't know if I can be in middle of this. Olivia, I'm sorry. Think it's best if we don't talk for a while. For second, wanted to argue with her. Explain everything she didn't know about my parents. But what was point? If she couldn't see truth, after everything I'd shared, she probably never would. That realization hit hard. Cutting ties with parents didn't just mean losing them, meant losing anyone who chose to stay on their side. Thought I was prepared for it, but feeling cracks grow. In relationships thought could count on, made me question if gone too far. But real hit came when parents escalated things out of nowhere. Got letter from lawyer, an actual cease and desist. They accused me of defamation, claimed my post was damaging their reputation, demanded I take it down immediately. Sat there staring at letter, feeling like air had been sucked out of room. Thought I was just sharing my story, my truth. Hadn't expected it to blow up like this, let alone turn into legal mess. Called lawyer of my own. She assured me was protected. Under free speech, still stress was overwhelming. Legal threat wasn't even worst part. Worst part was how fast story was spreading. Mutual acquaintances started messaging, asking what was going on. Some were just nosy. Others were outright judgmental. Even at work, people were whispering. One coworker approached me. Hey, I saw this post about family drama. Sounds familiar? Brushed it off. But inside was panicking. Professional life was supposed to be safe space. Now felt like that was slipping away too. Meanwhile, parents' social circle was unraveling. People asking them uncomfortable questions. Why didn't you go to Olivia's graduation? Why does she feel so distant from you? They didn't have answers. From what I heard, some of their closest friends starting to pull away, but instead of reflecting on actions, they doubled down. It wasn't just family trying to drag me down. Somehow word had gotten to my workplace. Coworker casually mentioned over lunch. So I heard you've been dealing with family drama. That post was a lot. Stomach dropped instantly. How did you even find that? Tried to sound unfazed. She just shrugged. Someone shared it in group chat. Honestly, some people think it's little intense. But hey, you do you. Rest a day couldn't stop wondering. How many people at work were whispering? Every time caught someone glancing. In break room. Wondered if they thought I was unstable daughter mom was painting me as what had felt empowering at first. Now felt like grenade. I'd pulled pin without thinking. Then David sent another email. Shorter this time. But just as infuriating. You're humiliating us. Take post down. Before you make things worse. And Lucas, ever the peacemaker, tried softer approach with text. Can we talk? This is getting out of hand. Didn't reply to either of them. They weren't reaching out because they cared. Were reaching out to protect own image. But honestly, started questioning if done right thing. Post had felt empowering at first. Like finally taking control of my story. But now everything felt like spinning out of control. Wasn't just exposing truth. Was caught in fallout. My parents had always been masters at controlling narrative. Even though I'd flipped script, they were fighting tooth and nail to regain that control. Friends tried to reassure me. Mara pulled me aside one day. You don't have to go through this alone. We've got your back. While I believed her, couldn't shake feeling. Was dragging everyone into my mess. Thought about deleting post, just to make everything stop. But would that even work? Would it undo damage? Or just make me look like I'd caved under pressure? Weight of it all was crushing. For first time in long time, felt stuck. Don't know what my next move is. Part of me wants to keep fighting, but another part wonders if it's worth it. Right now, just trying to figure out how to breathe again. Maybe I'll have updates soon. But for now, just stuck in middle of this mess. Trying to figure out what hell to do next. Here's final update you've been waiting for. After weeks of feeling stuck and overwhelmed, finally realized something. Was letting them win. Parents had been controlling narrative my whole life. Here I was letting them do it again. That lawyer letter, the judgmental messages, the whispers at work. It was all just noise. And honestly, was done with it. Sat down with my lawyer again, mostly to calm my nerves. They told me what needed to hear. Wasn't in wrong? Post was anonymous. Factual. Not single thing parents could use against me. Once let that sink in. Could finally breathe again. That's when knew. Needed to reclaim story. Wrote another update online. This time didn't hold back. Laid everything out. The lawyer letter. The messages. The fallout with extended family. Didn't just talk about it. Showed proof. Screenshots of texts. Cease and desist letter. With names blacked out. Even photo of those empty seats. At graduation. Wasn't just telling my side anymore. Was showing it. Response was something else. Comments flooded in. Thousands of them. People weren't just supporting me. Were tearing apart every excuse parents had tried to make. Classic emotional manipulation. This is exactly why we need to call out toxic family dynamics. Felt so good seeing strangers, validating everything I'd felt for years. Even David went quiet after that. Think he realized his usual smug, condescending emails weren't going to work anymore. Lucas sent another text. Do you really want to cut ties forever? But honestly, didn't even bother replying. If they're not willing to own up to what they've done, what's the point? At work, things actually turned out better than expected. Coworker who'd hinted at Post before brought it up again. I saw your update. That took guts. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. No judgment, no awkwardness, just support. So yeah, it was messy, but feel like finally got my footing again. Parents' attempts to control narrative backfired. For first time, not one sitting in silence. While they spin their lies, been focusing on people who actually matter. Ones who show up for me, not just when it's convenient. Holidays are coming up. This year I'm hosting little dinner with my friends. No forced smiles, no fake conversations, just people who care about me for me. They tried to take me down, but here I am, standing my ground. It's not perfect. Sure, there's more to come. But for now, finally feeling like in control of my own story. And that's when I'll take. Thank you to everyone who supported me, whether through messages, kind words, or just reading my story. It's been a wild ride, but finally in place where feel happy, loved, and free. This is my life now, and it's only getting better from here.